Hi everyone. Great to have you here at Potter Paradox. Get comfortable because today we're presenting What If Hermione Was the Girl Who Lived and Harry Was a Muggleborn. Before we start, a gentle reminder, if you love stories like this, please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm show our videos to more people. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Chapter 1, Sparks and Stone. The windows exploded outward. Glass hung in the air for a frozen moment, catching the dim light of the flat single working lamp, and Hermione Granger stood at the center of it all with her fists clenched and tears streaming down her face. Her hair had gone wild, wilder than usual, crackling with static electricity that made the strands rise and twist like something alive. "I didn't mean to," she said, but her voice came out wrong. Too steady. Too cold. Uncle Thomas had backed against the far wall, his face gone the color of old cheese. Aunt Margaret stood behind him, one hand pressed to her mouth, the other clutching the telephone like she might actually call someone. Who would she call? The police? What would she tell them? "My niece just blew out every window in the flat with her mind, please send help." You're a freak," Uncle Thomas managed. His voice cracked on the word. "Just like your mother. Just like, don't." Hermione's voice cut through the room. The glass shards trembled. "Don't talk about my mother." She didn't really remember her mother. Flashes, sometimes. A laugh. Warm hands. The smell of something floral. But those might have been dreams, or wishes, or the desperate inventions of a girl who'd grown up knowing she was different and wrong and unwanted. The glass fell. It clattered to the floor in a musical cascade, and Hermione felt the energy drain out of her, leaving her shaky and exhausted. This always happened. The power would build and build, pressure behind her eyes and in her chest, and then it would escape, and she'd be left cleaning up the mess while her aunt and uncle looked at her like she was something that had crawled out of a sewer. "I'll pay for the windows," Hermione said quietly. She had a jar of coins in her room, saved from odd jobs around the neighborhood, walking dogs, helping Mrs. Chen at the corner shop. It wouldn't be enough. It was never enough. "You'll pay." Uncle Thomas laughed, an ugly sound. "With what? You think anyone's going to hire you? Looking like that? Acting like." The knock at the door was so loud it made all three of them jump. Hermione turned. Through the kitchen doorway, she could see the front door shaking with each impact. Not a polite knock. Not a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. Someone was pounding on that door like they meant to break it down. "Don't answer it," Aunt Margaret hissed. "Thomas, don't," but Uncle Thomas was already moving, some instinct overriding his fear, and Hermione followed because she couldn't help it. She had to know. The door swung open, and Hermione's first thought was, giant. The man, if he was a man, filled the entire doorframe and then some. He had to duck to avoid hitting his head on the top, and his shoulders brushed both sides. Wild black hair and a beard that covered most of his face. Small dark eyes that crinkled when he looked down and saw her. "Hermione Granger," he said, and his voice was rough and warm and somehow familiar. "Blimey, look at ya. Last time I saw ya, you were barely bigger than a loaf of bread. Who the hell are you?" Uncle Thomas demanded, but his voice had gone squeaky. The giant ignored him entirely. He was pulling something from the depths of his enormous coat, letters, Hermione realized. Envelopes made of heavy yellowish paper, addressed in emerald green ink. "Been tryin' to deliver these fair weeks," the giant said. "Someone kept returnin' them. Someone didn't want ya to know." He looked at Aunt Margaret when he said it, and Hermione saw her aunt flinch. "Know what?" Hermione asked. Her voice was steady again. The exhaustion had faded, replaced by something else, something hot and sharp that felt like the beginning of another explosion. "What didn't she want me to know?" The giant smiled. It transformed his whole face, made him look kind and a little sad. "You're a witch, Hermione. Just like your mum and dad were magical. You're famous in our world, the whole wizarding world knows your name. The silence stretched. Hermione could hear her own heartbeat, could hear the distant sound of traffic from the street below, could hear her aunt's ragged breathing. Famous, Hermione repeated. For what? The giant's smile faded. Maybe we should sit down fair this one. His name was Hagrid. Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He told her this while drinking tea from a cup that looked comically small in his massive hands, sitting on a kitchen chair that creaked ominously under his weight. Hermione sat across from him. Her aunt and uncle had retreated to their bedroom and locked the door, which was fine by her. Better, actually. Your parents were heroes, Hagrid said. Jean and Richard Granger, finest witch and wizard of their generation, some said. They fought against you-know-who when most people were too scared to even say his name. Who? Voldemort. Hagrid shuddered as he said it. Dark wizard. Most powerful and most terrible in 100 years, maybe more. He wanted to rule everything, the magical world and the Muggle world too. Thought pure-blood wizards were better than everyone else, that Muggleborns, wizards born to non-magical parents, were dirt beneath his feet. My parents fought him. They defied him 3 times. Hagrid's voice had gone soft. And that's not something most people survive once. But they were brave, your mum and dad. Brave and clever and good. And when you-know-who came fair you, Hermione's throat had closed up. She knew what was coming. She'd always known, somewhere deep down, that the story of her parents' car crash was a lie. Normal car crashes didn't leave you with a scar like lightning on your forehead. Normal car crashes didn't make windows explode when you got angry. He killed them, she said. Voldemort. Hagrid nodded. His eyes were wet. Halloween night, 11 years ago. He came to your house himself. Killed your dad first. Richard was buying time, trying to let your mum escape with you. Then your mum. She died protecting you, Hermione. She coulda stepped aside, let him take you, but she wouldn't. She stood between you and the killing curse. The killing curse? Avada Kedavra. There's no surviving it. No one ever has. Hagrid paused, looked at her with something like wonder. Except you. Hermione's hand rose to her forehead without her permission. Her fingers traced the scar she'd had as long as she could remember, the jagged lightning bolt that nothing could hide. The curse rebounded, Hagrid continued. Hit you-know-who instead. Destroyed him, or something close to it. You were just a baby, barely a year old, and you defeated the darkest wizard in living memory. That's why you're famous, Hermione. You're the girl who lived. Hermione sat with that for a long moment. The girl who lived. She hated it immediately, hated the way it sounded like something from a storybook, hated the way it made her parents' deaths into some kind of narrative triumph, hated the fact that she'd spent her whole life not knowing any of this while strangers in some magical world she'd never seen celebrated her survival. I didn't defeat anyone, she said finally. I was a baby. My mother defeated him. Her sacrifice. Her choice. I just happened to live through it. Hagrid looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable behind all that beard. Then he smiled again, smaller this time, but somehow more real. Your mum would have said something like that, he said. She never did like talking credit fair things either. Hermione's eyes burned. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of this stranger, even if he did seem kind. So what now? You came here to give me letters. To give ya this. Hagrid pushed an envelope across the table. Your Hogwarts letter. School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, best magical school in the world. You've been enrolled since birth, just like your parents were. Hermione picked up the letter. The envelope was heavy, the paper thick and expensive feeling. Her name was written in emerald ink, Miss H. Granger, the box room, 47 Greystone Flats, London. The box room. They knew she slept in the box room. She opened it carefully, unfolding the letter inside. An acceptance to a school she'd never heard of. A list of supplies, books and cauldrons and wands. A train ticket for something called Platform 9 3/4. "I'm going," she said. It wasn't a question. "Thought ya might say that." Hagrid was grinning again. "Come on, then. We've got shopping to do." Diagon Alley was impossible. Hermione stood at the entrance, a brick archway that had opened from nothing, from the back wall of a grimy pub, and stared at the cobblestone street stretching before her. Shops lined both sides, their windows crammed with things that shouldn't exist. Cauldrons in every size. Owls in cages. Broomsticks. Broomsticks, like people actually flew on them. "Welcome to the wizarding world," Hagrid said, and he sounded proud, like he was personally responsible for all of it. Hermione walked forward in a daze. People streamed past her, witches and wizards in robes of every color, children chasing each other and laughing, a goblin, haggling with a merchant over something shiny. She wanted to stop at every shop, wanted to read every sign, wanted to understand how any of this was real. But people kept stopping her first. "Is that Merlin's beard? Is that Hermione Granger? The girl who lived here, in the alley? Look at the scar, Mummy, look." Hermione's jaw tightened. She pulled her hair forward, trying to cover the scar, but it didn't help. People were pointing. Whispering. A witch in purple robes actually grabbed her hand and started shaking it, tears in her eyes, saying, thank you, I lost my brother to you-know-who, thank you for ending it." Hermione yanked her hand back. "I didn't do anything. I was a baby. I don't even remember it." The witch's face crumpled, confused and hurt, and Hermione felt like a monster. But she couldn't do this. She couldn't be whatever these people wanted her to be, a hero, a savior, a symbol. She was 11 years old and she'd just learned magic existed, and her parents were dead, and everyone seemed to think she should be grateful. "Come on," Hagrid said gently, his huge hand on her shoulder steering her away. "Let's get your supplies." They went to Gringotts first, a massive white building staffed entirely by goblins, who didn't care at all that she was the girl who lived. Hermione found she appreciated that. Her parents had left her a vault, Hagrid explained. Gold coins called galleons, silver sickles, bronze nuts. Enough to pay for school supplies many times over. Hermione stared at the piles of gold and felt something twist in her chest. All those years in the box room, wearing second-hand clothes, listening to her aunt complain about the cost of feeding her. And this had been sitting here the whole time. "Why didn't I know?" she asked, and her voice echoed off the stone walls. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Hagrid looked uncomfortable. Dumbledore thought, the headmaster, that is, he thought it'd be best for ya to grow up away from all this. The fame, the pressure. He wanted ya to have a normal childhood. Normal. Hermione's laugh was bitter. "I blew out every window in the flat today because my uncle called me a freak. That's not normal. That's miserable." She took a breath. Steadied herself. She couldn't change the past, couldn't unlive the years of isolation and neglect. But she could move forward. She could learn magic, understand her power, become something more than the scared girl who couldn't control her own abilities. "Where do we buy wands?" she asked. Ollivander's was dusty and dim and smelled like old paper and something else, something sharp, almost electric. Hermione stood at the counter while a pale old man with silver eyes examined her with unsettling intensity. "Hermione Granger," he said. "I wondered when I'd see you. It seems like only yesterday your mother was in here buying her first wand. Willow, 11 inches, unicorn hair core. Excellent for charm work. Did you know her well?" I remember every wand I've ever sold, Miss Granger. Your mother's wand. Your father's, oak, 12 inches, dragon heartstring, surprisingly swishy. And, of course. He paused, his pale eyes fixed on her scar. The wand that gave you that. You, 13.5 inches, phoenix feather core. Powerful and terrible and destined for dark things. Hermione's stomach turned. You sold Voldemort his wand? I sold Tom Riddle a wand, Ollivander corrected. What he became afterward, but we're not here to discuss history, are we? We're here to find your wand. Let's see. The fitting took nearly an hour. Ollivander pulled wands from shelves seemingly at random, had Hermione wave each one, and snatched them back when they produced underwhelming results. Sparks flew the wrong direction. A vase exploded. One wand actually caught fire. Tricky customer, Ollivander murmured, but he seemed pleased about it. Your magic is powerful, Miss Granger, powerful and wild. You'll need something that can channel it without being overwhelmed. He disappeared into the back of the shop. When he returned, he was carrying a dark wooden box with reverent care. Try this one. The wand inside was beautiful, pale wood, 10.75 inches, elegantly curved. The moment Hermione's fingers closed around it, warmth rushed up her arm, and she felt something click into place inside her chest. She waved it experimentally, and golden sparks erupted from the tip, swirling around her like fireflies. Oh yes, Ollivander said softly. Vine wood, dragon heartstring core. Vine wands are among the most sensitive, Miss Granger, they seek partners with hidden depths, with vision beyond the ordinary. And dragon heartstring, powerful. Very powerful. The most prone to accidents, but capable of the most spectacular magic. It feels right, Hermione said. The warmth hadn't faded. She felt more centered than she had in years, like the wild energy inside her finally had somewhere to go. That wand chose you for a reason, Miss Granger. I expect great things from you. Terrible, perhaps, but great. Hermione left the shop with the wand in her pocket and Ollivander's words echoing in her head. Terrible, but great. She didn't want to be terrible. She didn't want to be great either, not if it meant people staring at her scar and crying and thanking her for things she didn't do. She just wanted to understand. Flourish and Blots was her last stop, and Hermione was grateful for it. Books she understood. Books didn't stare or whisper or grab her hand. Books were safe. She was reaching for a copy of Hogwarts, a history when another hand appeared beside hers. Smaller than hers, a boy's hand, tanned and ink-stained. Hermione looked up and found herself staring into the greenest eyes she'd ever seen. The boy was about her age, with messy black hair that stuck up in every direction and round glasses that had been mended at least twice. He wore Muggle clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, which meant he was either Muggleborn or had no idea how to dress in the magical world. I was here first, Hermione said automatically. Were you? The boy tilted his head, considering. I had my hand on the spine first. You were still reaching. That's technically, Hermione stopped. She'd been about to say technically true, because it was. Fine. You can have it. We could share. The boy pulled the book from the shelf and examined the cover. I'm mostly interested in the chapter on magical concealment. The wards around the school, the enchantments that keep muggles from finding it. You. Everything. Hermione found herself staring at him. Most wizards and witches she'd met today had looked at her scar first. This boy was looking at her face, actually seeing her, waiting for an answer. I want to know everything. I've just learned magic exists, and I've wasted 11 years not knowing. 11 years isn't wasted if you learned other things. The boy stuck out his hand. I'm Harry. Harry Potter. Hermione Granger. She watched for the reaction, the widening eyes, the dropped jaw, the stammered "You're the girl who lived." It didn't come. Harry shook her hand firmly and let go, still studying her with that curious intensity. "You're Muggleborn?" she asked. "Apparently. My parents are dentists, they fix teeth. When I got my Hogwarts letter, I thought it was a prank until Professor McGonagall showed up and turned our coffee table into a pig." Despite everything, Hermione laughed. That must have been a shock. It was confirmation, actually. Harry's eyes gleamed behind his glasses. "I've known I could do magic since I was 8. I made my school bully float to the ceiling because he wouldn't stop pulling my hair. Spent the next 3 years trying to understand what I could do and why. The letter just gave me a name for it." Hermione stared at him. "You've been studying your magic? On your own? How?" "Trial and error, mostly. Observation. I kept notebooks, what triggers my abilities, the emotional states that correlate with specific effects, the approximate range and duration of each manifestation." He shrugged like this was perfectly normal. "I theorized there had to be a larger community of magic users. No way an ability like this exists in isolation. That's impressive." And it was. Hermione had spent years terrified of her power, trying to suppress it, breaking things when it escaped. Harry had approached it like a science experiment. Not really. Harry looked at her with sudden sharpness. "So you survived a curse that should have killed you. That's interesting. But what can you actually do?" No one had ever asked her that. Everyone else cared about what she'd survived, the famous moment when she was 1 year old and didn't die. Harry wanted to know what she was capable of now. Hermione felt her magic stir in her chest, responding to her emotions like it always did. But this time, instead of fear, she felt something else. Excitement, maybe. Or challenge. She focused on the shelf behind Harry. Thought about all those books, all that knowledge, all the things she wanted to learn. Her magic surged, books exploded off the shelves. Dozens of them, flying in all directions, and Hermione gasped and tried to pull it back, tried to stop. Harry raised his hand. Not a wand, just his hand. And the books stopped. They hung in midair, suspended, trembling slightly. "Uncontrolled but powerful," Harry said, and he was grinning. "We should work on that." Hermione stared at him. "You can do wandless magic?" "Limited. Small objects, short duration. I've been practicing for years." He lowered his hand and the books clattered to the floor, but gently. "You've got more raw power than I do, but you can't direct it. I can direct mine, but it's not nearly as strong. We complement each other. We've known each other for 5 minutes. And I can already tell you're the most interesting person I've met in the magical world." Harry bent to start gathering books. "Help me clean this up and tell me everything you know about your abilities. I'll tell you everything I've figured out. We can compare notes on the train." Hermione should have been offended by his presumption. Should have been annoyed at his casual assumption that they'd be spending time together. But she wasn't. For the first time since Hagrid had knocked on her door, she felt like she'd found something that made sense. "Fine," she said, kneeling to help with the books. "But I'm reading Hogwarts, a history first. We can take turns." Platform 9 3/4 was exactly as impossible as everything else, and Hermione found herself grinning as she passed through the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 and emerged onto a crowded train platform. A scarlet steam engine sat waiting, gleaming and magnificent, with Hogwarts Express emblazoned on the side. Harry was already there. She spotted him immediately, his messy black hair visible above the crowd. He was standing alone, watching the chaos of families saying goodbye with an expression of careful neutrality. "Your parents didn't come?" Hermione asked as she approached. "They wanted to." Harry shrugged. "I told them it would be easier this way. Less awkward. They don't really understand any of this, and I didn't want them to feel out of place." Hermione thought about that. About protecting your parents from discomfort even when it meant saying goodbye alone. Her aunt and uncle hadn't even gotten out of bed when she'd left. Mine didn't care enough to say goodbye at all, she said, and it came out more bitter than she'd intended. Harry looked at her steadily. Then they don't deserve your goodbye. Come on, let's find a compartment. They climbed onto the train and found an empty compartment near the middle. Hermione settled into a seat by the window, pulling out her copy of Hogwarts, a history immediately. Harry sat across from her with a notebook and started scribbling something in what looked like an elaborate code. What's that? Hermione asked. My observations about the train platform. The glamour on the barrier, the concealment charms, the magical signature of the crowd. He glanced up. I'm mapping magical phenomena. Building a database. The more I understand about how magic works on a fundamental level, the better I'll be able to use it. That's very obsessive? I was going to say thorough. Harry smiled. It transformed his face, made him look younger and more open. I'll take it. The compartment door slid open, and a gangly red-haired boy stuck his head in. He had freckles everywhere, a smudge of dirt on his nose, and an expression of desperate hope. Mind if I sit here? Everywhere else is full, and my brothers ditched me. He didn't wait for an answer before dropping onto the seat next to Harry, a battered trunk thumping down at his feet. I'm Ron. Ron Weasley. Harry Potter. Hermione Granger. Ron's eyes went huge. Hermione Granger. Like, the Hermione Granger. The girl who lived. Unfortunately, Hermione muttered. Blimey. Ron was staring at her forehead, and Hermione felt herself tense. But then he seemed to catch himself and looked away, ears going red. Sorry, that was rude. My mum would kill me. It's just, you're in all the books, you know. There's like 6 different versions of what happened that night. I was a baby, Hermione said flatly. I don't remember any of it. I survived because my mother sacrificed herself for me. I'm not a hero. Right. Right, yeah, of course. Ron fidgeted, clearly uncomfortable. His eyes landed on Harry instead, looking for an easier target. Potter, that's not a wizarding name. Are you Muggleborn? Yes. Oh. Ron's tone shifted slightly, not hostile, but something. Skeptical, maybe. So you don't know much about magic yet, then? It's okay, I can explain things, I know plenty, Harry said mildly. I've been studying my abilities for 3 years. Self-taught. I already have functional wandless control of small objects and have developed a preliminary taxonomy of magical phenomena based on my observations. Ron blinked. What? I've been practicing magic on my own since I was 8. But that's, Muggleborns can't. Ron stopped, looking confused. Can they? Apparently. Hermione watched this exchange with interest. Harry wasn't defensive or aggressive, he was just stating facts. Ron seemed thrown by it, like someone had shuffled his cards out of order. Prove it, Ron said suddenly. Do something wandless. Harry glanced around the compartment. His eyes landed on a chocolate frog wrapper that had been left behind by a previous occupant. He extended 2 fingers, just slightly, and the wrapper rose into the air, folded itself into the shape of a crane, and landed on Ron's knee. Ron stared at it. Then at Harry. Then back at the crane. That's brilliant, he breathed. That's actually brilliant. They don't even teach us that at Hogwarts until like 6th year, and most people can't do it at all. Harry's carefully neutral expression cracked into something like pleased surprise. Really? That seems inefficient. If wizards can do magic without wands, why not train the ability? Because it's hard, I suppose. And dangerous. Most people just use wands their whole lives. Ron was looking at Harry with new respect now. My brothers are going to lose their minds when I tell them about this. Fred and George, they're twins, 4th years, they think they're the most talented wizards in the family. Charlie was a dragon handler before he graduated. Bill works for Gringotts. How many brothers do you have? Hermione asked, drawn in despite herself. 5. And a sister. I'm the 6th son. Ron's face did something complicated, pride and frustration and something lonelier beneath it. Everything I do, one of them did first. Hard to stand out. Hermione understood that, in a way. Hard to stand out, or hard to disappear, in her case. Hard to be anything other than what people expected. You could stand out by doing something they didn't, Harry said. What are you good at that they aren't? Ron shrugged. Chess, I suppose. I beat all of them at chess. Play me. Ron laughed. You want to play wizard chess? Mate, have you ever even seen it before? No. But I'm a quick study. Something sparked in Ron's eyes, competitive interest, maybe, or the joy of being challenged. He dug through his trunk and produced a battered chess set, the pieces moving and grumbling as he set up the board. Harry watched the pieces' movements for approximately 90 seconds. Then he said, Knight to f3. The game lasted 45 minutes. Ron won, but only barely, and by the end he was sweating and grinning and looking at Harry like he'd found a long-lost friend. That was, how did you? You've really never played before. I figured out the rules from watching. The strategy is similar to regular chess with additional variables for piece aggression and autonomous decision-making. You're mental. Ron was still grinning. That's the best game I've had in months. My brothers all refuse to play me anymore because I always win. I'll get better, Harry said. Next time I'll beat you. Next time you can try. Hermione found herself smiling. An hour ago, these boys had been strangers. Now they were arguing about chess strategy like they'd known each other for years. It felt easy. Natural. Real. The compartment door slid open again. This time, it wasn't a friendly face. A boy about their age stood in the doorway, white blonde hair slicked back, gray eyes cold and assessing. 2 larger boys flanked him like bodyguards. So it's true, the blonde boy said. Hermione Granger is on the train. His gaze swept over the compartment, dismissing Ron and lingering on Harry with faint contempt. And this is who she chooses to associate with. A blood traitor and a Muggleborn. How disappointing. Hermione felt her magic surge. The windows rattled. I don't know who you are, she said, but I suggest you leave. Draco Malfoy. He said it like it should mean something. My father told me all about you, Granger. Your parents were blood traitors, purebloods who turned their backs on their own kind. They got what they deserved. The compartment shook. Hermione was on her feet without deciding to move, her wand in her hand, not that she knew how to use it, and her hair rising with static electricity. Say that again, she said quietly. I dare you. Draco's eyes widened slightly. His bodyguard shifted, uncertain. You might want to leave, Harry said, still seated, his voice utterly calm. Before she accidentally kills you. Her control isn't great when she's emotional. Draco looked between them. For a moment, Hermione thought he'd push, thought he'd say something else awful and she'd actually hurt him. But he wasn't stupid. He could feel the power rolling off her in waves, could see the windows vibrating, could hear the rattling of the luggage racks. This isn't over, he said. The wizarding world has a natural order, Granger. Blood matters. You'll learn that soon enough. He turned and left, his bodyguards trailing behind him. Hermione stayed standing, breathing hard, trying to pull her magic back under control. The rattling subsided slowly. The static in her hair faded. Well, Ron said into the silence. He seems like a delight. Harry snorted. Hermione felt a laugh bubble up in her throat, inappropriate and slightly hysterical, and then she was laughing for real, and Ron was laughing, and Harry was shaking his head with that small smile he seemed to save for moments when people surprised him. "Blood matters," Ron mimicked in a snotty voice. "My family's been pure blood for centuries and we can barely afford new robes. The Malfoys are rich as anything but they're rotten to the core. Blood doesn't mean anything." "Tell that to the Ministry," Hermione said, sitting back down. Her hands were still shaking. "Tell that to everyone who's been treating me like a celebrity all day." "You survived the killing curse," Ron said. "That's not about blood, that's about your mum's sacrifice. The magic that saved you was love, not blood purity." Hermione blinked at him. That was, unexpectedly profound. "I read about it," Ron admitted, ears going red again. "When I was little. Couldn't understand why one baby got so much attention. Then I learned what your mum did, and it made sense. That kind of love, it leaves a mark. Protects you." Hermione touched her scar. "A mark. Not the scar. That's from the curse. The protection's deeper than that." Ron shrugged awkwardly. "At least, that's what the books say." Harry had pulled out his notebook again and was writing rapidly. "The magical properties of emotional sacrifice. That's fascinating. I wonder if it could be replicated, or if it requires a specific relationship between the parties involved, Harry." Hermione's voice was gentle. "I appreciate the analytical interest, but maybe not right now." Harry looked up, saw her face, and nodded. "Right. Sorry. I get caught up." "It's okay." And it was. Because he wasn't treating her tragedy like entertainment, he was treating it like a puzzle worth understanding. That was different from the gawking strangers in Diagon Alley. The train rumbled on through the countryside. Eventually, they changed into their school robes, plain black, identical, and watched through the window as the sun set and stars emerged. When the train finally slowed, Hermione could see a massive castle in the distance, lit by hundreds of glowing windows. "There it is," Ron breathed. "Hogwarts." Hermione stared at it. Her mother had gone to school there. Her father too. They'd walked those halls, eaten in that great hall, learned magic that would eventually lead them to defy a dark wizard and die protecting their daughter. She didn't know what she was supposed to feel. Pride? Grief? Determination? What she actually felt was ready. The Sorting Hat was sentient, which shouldn't have surprised Hermione at this point but somehow still did. It sang a song about the four houses, Gryffindor for the brave, Ravenclaw for the wise, Hufflepuff for the loyal, Slytherin for the ambitious, and then began sorting students one by one. Hermione watched from the crowd of first years, trying to analyze the pattern. Some students were sorted almost instantly. Others sat under the hat for minutes at a time. She couldn't tell what criteria it used. Granger, Hermione. The great hall went silent. Every head turned. Hermione felt hundreds of eyes on her as she walked to the stool, sat down, and felt the hat's brim drop over her eyes. "Well, well," said a voice in her head. "The girl who lived. I wondered what I'd find in here." "Just sort me," Hermione thought back. "I don't need commentary." "Oh, but you're interesting. So much courage, your parents' legacy, that. And intelligence too, though you haven't had the chance to develop it properly. Determination. Ambition, yes, there's plenty of that. You want to prove yourself. You want to be more than your scar. Is that wrong? Not at all. The question is where to put you. Slytherin would help you achieve your ambitions, but you'd be surrounded by people like young Malfoy. Ravenclaw would nurture your intellect, but you need something more than books. Hufflepuff would value your loyalty, but you haven't learned to trust yet. And Gryffindor? Gryffindor would give you a family, the hat said. Courage you already have. What you need is people who'll stand beside you when that courage is tested. Better be, Gryffindor. The Gryffindor table exploded with cheers. Hermione walked toward it in a daze, sliding into an empty seat as people clapped her on the back and shouted welcome. Across the hall, she could see Draco Malfoy watching her with cold eyes. He'd been sorted into Slytherin, of course. Malfoy, Draco, had barely touched his head before the hat screamed Slytherin. Some legacies were predictable. Potter, Harry. The hall murmured. Potter wasn't a famous name, but people had noticed him on the train, noticed the way he sat with Hermione Granger, the way he didn't seem intimidated by anything. The Muggleborn who did wandless magic. Rumors spread fast. Harry sat under the hat for a long time. Hermione watched his face, trying to read his expression, but it was carefully blank. Finally, the hat's brim twitched. Gryffindor. More cheers. Harry walked to the table and sat beside Hermione, his expression still neutral but his eyes warm when he looked at her. The hat said I was hard to place, he murmured. Ravenclaw fit best intellectually, but it thought I needed something different. Something that would challenge me emotionally, not just mentally. What does that mean? I think it means you. Harry smiled. And whoever else we end up with. Weasley, Ronald. Ron's sorting took even longer than Harry's. Hermione could see him arguing with the hat, his ears going red, his mouth moving as he made his case for something. Finally, Gryffindor. Ron practically ran to the table, dropping into the seat across from them with a look of profound relief. Thought it was going to stick me in Hufflepuff, he said. Nothing wrong with Hufflepuff, but all my brothers were Gryffindors. Mum would have cried. What were you arguing about? Hermione asked. It said I was surprisingly strategic for someone who wanted to be in Gryffindor. Said I'd do well in Slytherin, actually, good tactical mind, strong survival instincts. Ron shuddered. Can you imagine? Me, in Slytherin? Fred and George would never let me live it down. The hat suggested Slytherin for me too, Hermione admitted. And me, Harry said. They looked at each other. 3 students the Sorting Hat had considered for the House of the Ambitious, the Cunning, the Willing to do anything. All of them sitting at the Gryffindor table instead. Maybe it saw something, Ron said slowly. Maybe it knew we'd need each other. Or maybe, Harry said, we just convinced it to put us where we wanted to be. Either way. Hermione raised her goblet, pumpkin juice, apparently, which was strange but not unpleasant. To Gryffindor. To Gryffindor, they echoed. And for the first time in her life, Hermione felt like she might actually belong somewhere. The first weeks of school were a blur of classes, corridors, and magic. Hermione threw herself into learning with desperate intensity, reading every textbook twice, taking notes on everything, asking questions until even the professors looked tired. Harry matched her pace, but differently. Where Hermione absorbed information broadly, Harry focused narrowly, drilling deep into specific topics until he understood them completely. He'd already started supplementing the standard curriculum with independent research, staying late in the library to read obscure texts on magical theory. Ron was different still. He coasted through most classes, doing just enough work to pass, but he came alive during practical sessions. His spell work was intuitive where Harry's was precise and Hermione's was powerful. He landed hexes on the first try when Hermione's went wild and Harry's required multiple adjustments. It's like breathing, Ron explained when Hermione asked about it. I don't think about it, I just do it. Magic's always been part of my life. It's normal to me. That must be nice, Hermione said, and she meant it. Snape was a problem from day one. The potions professor looked at Hermione with cold hatred that she didn't understand. She'd never met him before, never done anything to him, and seemed determined to humiliate her in every class. Your father, Snape said during their second lesson, was arrogant enough to believe he could brew advanced potions without following instructions. Let's see if you inherited that particular failing. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Hermione didn't know. She'd read the textbook but not memorized every obscure potion, and Snape's eyes gleamed with satisfaction at her silence. I thought not. Fame clearly isn't everything. It's called Draught of Living Death, Harry said quietly from beside her. A powerful sleeping potion. Chapter 12 of Magical Draughts and Potions. Snape's gaze shifted to Harry. Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or reassessment. A Muggleborn who does his reading. How refreshing. The words were neutral but the tone wasn't. 5 points from Gryffindor for speaking out of turn, Mr. Potter. Perhaps next time you'll wait to be called upon. Harry didn't react. He'd told Hermione and Ron that he expected prejudice from some quarters, that blood status clearly mattered in the wizarding world even if it shouldn't. He'd prepared himself for it. But Hermione saw his jaw tighten slightly. She saw the calculation in his eyes as he filed Snape away as a problem to be understood and, eventually, solved. He hates you because of your parents, Ron told Hermione later, in the common room. My brothers told me. Snape went to school with them, and he and your dad were rivals. Plus there's some rumor about your mom, that Snape was in love with her or something. Hermione's stomach twisted. He was in love with my mother. And she married my father. And then she died protecting you. Yeah. Ron looked uncomfortable. No wonder he's horrible to you. Every time he sees your face, he probably sees them. That's not my fault. Of course it's not. Doesn't mean he won't punish you for it. Hermione added Snape to her mental list of problems. Right after Draco Malfoy, who had made it his mission to make her life miserable at every opportunity, tripping her in corridors, spreading rumors about her parents, making loud comments about blood traders and their tainted offspring. She could have hurt him. Every time her magic surged in response to his cruelty, she could feel how easy it would be, how natural, to let it loose and watch him suffer. But that would prove his point, wouldn't it? That she was dangerous. That she needed to be controlled. So she bit down on the rage and walked away. Every single time. You're getting better, Harry observed, after Draco had called her mother a deluded fool and Hermione had merely clenched her fists instead of exploding. The control. You're learning. I'm learning to suppress, Hermione said. That's not the same as control. No, Harry agreed. But it's a start. We can work on real control once you've mastered the suppression. Layer by layer. That's how you build a foundation. He sounded so certain. Like he had a plan for everything, a system for understanding the world. Hermione envied that certainty even as she tried to emulate it. Halloween arrived with feasting and festivity. The great hall was decorated with floating jack-o'-lanterns and live bats, and the tables groaned under the weight of food. Hermione should have been enjoying it. Instead, she was in the girls' bathroom, crying. It was stupid. She knew it was stupid. But Draco had outdone himself today, catching her in the corridor and loudly declaring that Halloween was the anniversary of her parents' deaths, that she should be mourning them instead of celebrating, that she was dishonoring their memory by pretending to be happy. The worst part was that he wasn't entirely wrong. She should be mourning them. She should be thinking about what she'd lost instead of eating candy and laughing with her friends. What kind of person was she, to be happy on the day her parents were murdered? So she'd fled. And now she was sitting on the cold bathroom floor, sobbing, while a ghost named Myrtle wailed in sympathy from inside a toilet stall. She didn't hear the door open. Didn't hear the shuffling footsteps. Didn't notice the smell, rank and rotting, until it was too late. Hermione looked up and saw the troll. It was massive. 12 feet tall at least, gray-skinned and lumpy, with a tiny head and a club the size of a small tree. It was staring at her with dim, confused eyes, like it couldn't quite figure out what she was. Then it raised the club. Hermione's magic exploded. Not deliberately, she wasn't thinking at all, but instinctively, desperately. A wave of force slammed into the troll, knocking it backward into the row of sinks. Porcelain shattered. Water sprayed everywhere. The troll got up. It looked angry now. Hermione scrambled to her feet, backing toward the wall, her wand out but her mind blank. What spell? What could stop something this big? She'd read about trolls but she couldn't remember anything useful, couldn't think. The bathroom door burst open. Harry and Ron charged through, skidding to a halt at the sight of the troll. Hermione! Ron shouted. Get down! She dropped to the floor just as the troll's club swung through the space where her head had been. The wall behind her cracked. Harry was moving, not toward the troll but around it, analyzing. Ron, distraction. Keep it focused on you. On me? But Ron was already raising his wand, firing sparks at the troll's face. The creature roared and swung at him. Ron dove aside, rolled, came up firing again. Harry reached the sinks, or what was left of them. Water was pooling everywhere, making the floor slick. He pointed his wand at the puddles and shouted something Hermione couldn't hear. The water moved. It surged up around the troll's feet, freezing solid, trapping it in place. The troll bellowed and tried to pull free, but its momentum was gone. It was stuck. Hermione, now! Harry yelled. She didn't think. She just acted. All the rage she'd been suppressing, at Draco, at her aunt and uncle, at everyone who expected her to be something she wasn't, came flooding out. Her magic surged through her wand and slammed into the troll like a wall of force. The creature hit the back wall hard enough to crack stone. It slid down to the floor, unconscious. Silence. Just the sound of dripping water and heavy breathing. Did we just? Ron started. Yeah. Harry was pale but steady. We did. Hermione's legs gave out. She sat down hard, trembling, and Harry and Ron were beside her instantly. Are you okay? Did it hurt you? Ron's hands were on her shoulders, checking for injuries. I'm fine. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. She was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. How did you know I was here? You weren't at the feast. Harry's voice was quiet. We noticed. When Quirrell came in shouting about a troll in the dungeons, we realized you didn't know. You came looking for me. Of course we did. Ron said it like it was obvious. Like there had never been any other option. You're our friend. Hermione burst into tears again, but they were different tears this time. Relief and gratitude and something warmer, a feeling she didn't have a name for yet. The professors arrived moments later, McGonagall at the front, her face white with terror that shifted to shock when she saw the unconscious troll and the 3 first-years sitting amid the wreckage. What on earth, how did you? It's our fault, Professor. Harry stood, putting himself between the adults and his friends. We went looking for Hermione when we realized she didn't know about the troll. We found it attacking her and we dealt with it. You dealt with a full-grown mountain troll. McGonagall's voice was faint. 3 first-years. Ron distracted it while I immobilized its feet, Harry said calmly. Hermione finished it with a force-based concussive blast. Teamwork. McGonagall looked at him for a long moment. Then at Ron. Then at Hermione, who was still sitting on the floor with tears on her cheeks. 5 points to Gryffindor, she said finally. Each. For sheer dumb luck and the most foolish bravery I've seen in 20 years of teaching. She didn't sound angry. She sounded like she was trying very hard not to smile. Now get back to your dormitory. All of you. Before I change my mind and give you detention. They went. And as they walked through the darkened corridors, side by side, something had changed between them. The friendship that had been forming since the train was solid now. Real. Forged in fire, or at least in troll fighting. We should do this again sometime, Ron said. Harry snorted. Fight trolls. Save each other. Ron grinned. It was fun. Hermione laughed, really laughed, for the first time since morning. You're both insane. Probably, Harry agreed. But so are you. You took down a mountain troll with raw magic on your first try. That's not normal. Nothing about this is normal. Normal is overrated anyway. They reached the Gryffindor common room and climbed through the portrait hole together. The other students had already returned from the feast and were milling about, excited chatter filling the space. Hermione, Harry, and Ron found a quiet corner. They didn't talk much, just sat together, processing what had happened, letting the adrenaline fade. Thank you, Hermione said eventually. For coming for me. You could have stayed safe. Safe is also overrated, Ron said. Harry just shook his head. You're one of us now. We don't leave our own behind. Our own. Hermione let those words settle into her chest, warm and certain. She'd spent her whole life feeling like she didn't belong anywhere. Now, finally, she did. The mystery began to unfold gradually. It started with Snape, or rather, with what Hermione noticed during the chaos of the troll attack. When the professors had burst into the bathroom, she'd glimpsed Snape at the back of the group, limping badly, his robes torn and stained with what looked like blood. He wasn't at the feast, she told Harry and Ron the next day, in the library. Neither was Quirrell, actually. Quirrell announced the troll and then fainted, and nobody seemed to notice that Snape was missing entirely. You think Snape let the troll in? Ron looked skeptical. He's horrible, but that's a bit much, isn't it? I don't know. Hermione chewed her lip. But there's something going on. Something the professors aren't telling us. Harry leaned forward. I noticed something too. During the feast, before Quirrell came in, I was watching the head table. Snape kept looking at Quirrell. And Quirrell's turban, there's something off about it. Off how? It smells wrong. Harry wrinkled his nose. Garlic, obviously, he claims it's to ward off vampires, but there's something else underneath. Something that makes my skin crawl. I can't explain it better than that. Hermione filed this away. Harry's instincts were usually good. If he sensed something wrong with Quirrell, it was worth investigating. The investigation led them to Fluffy. They found the three-headed dog by accident, fleeing from Filch after being caught in the corridor past curfew. The door on the third-floor corridor was supposed to be forbidden, but Hermione's panicked Alohomora opened it easily, and they tumbled through into the lair of a massive, three-headed dog that woke from its slumber and started barking loud enough to shake the walls. They fled. But not before Hermione noticed the trapdoor beneath one of the dog's massive paws. It's guarding something, she said breathlessly, once they were safely back in the common room. Something underneath Hogwarts. Something valuable, Harry added. Something someone wants badly enough to set a troll loose as a distraction. Snape, Ron said. It's got to be Snape. He was injured because the dog bit him, he was trying to get past it. Maybe. Harry's voice was thoughtful. Or maybe he was protecting whatever's down there. We don't have enough information yet. They got more information over the following weeks. Hermione found references to Nicholas Flamel in a footnote in one of her books, a famous alchemist, the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. Harry cross-referenced this with his research on magical artifacts and concluded that the stone was what Fluffy was guarding. It creates the elixir of life, Harry explained. Makes you immortal. Flamel is over 600 years old because of it. If someone stole it, they'd live forever, Hermione finished. Voldemort. It has to be. He's not really dead, Hagrid said he was destroyed, but not killed. What if he's trying to come back? The idea was terrifying. And it made a horrible kind of sense. They watched Snape more closely. They noticed the way his eyes followed Quirrell, the tension in his shoulders whenever the defense professor was nearby. They noticed Quirrell's nervous tics growing worse, his stammer increasing, his hands shaking more violently. If Snape's the threat, Ron argued, why does he keep watching Quirrell? Wouldn't he be watching the dog, or the trapdoor, or whatever? Unless he knows something we don't, Hermione said. Unless he knows the real threat is somewhere else. Harry was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I've been watching Quirrell too. There's something wrong with him, more wrong than just nerves. Sometimes, when he thinks no one's looking, his expression changes. Becomes cold. Calculating. Not the bumbling fool he pretends to be. You think it's an act. I think something is an act. I just don't know which part. They decided to investigate further. They spent hours in the library, researching the Philosopher's Stone, protection magic, possession. Harry developed a theory about parasitic consciousness, magical entities that could share a host body, that made Hermione's skin crawl. And then, near the end of the year, everything accelerated. Hagrid let slip that he'd told a stranger in a pub how to get past Fluffy, just play him a bit of music and he falls right asleep, and suddenly the timeline became urgent. Someone knew the secret. Someone could get to the stone. It has to be tonight, Hermione said. Dumbledore was called away to the ministry. Whoever's behind this is making their move. Then we make ours, Harry said. They went through the trapdoor together. The obstacles were designed for adults, powerful, experienced wizards, but they faced them as a team and that made all the difference. Devil's Snare, Hermione remembered the passage from 1,000 Magical Herbs and Fungi, and Ron's lighter, borrowed from the twins, provided the fire they needed. Flying Keys, Harry's reflexes and natural grace made him a brilliant flyer, even on a battered school broomstick. He caught the silver key on his third pass. Giant Chess, Ron came alive. He directed them like a general, sacrificing pieces strategically, thinking 3 moves ahead. When he realized he'd have to sacrifice himself to win, he didn't hesitate. Ron, Hermione started. It's the only way. Go on. Stop whoever's down there. He gave them a shaky grin. I'll be fine. Just a bit of a knock on the head. The White Queen struck him down. Hermione screamed. But Harry grabbed her arm, pulled her forward, and they ran. The logic puzzle, Harry solved it in minutes, his analytical mind parsing the riddle like a math problem. Only enough potion for one person to go forward. You should go, Harry said. You're the girl who lived. If Voldemort's down there, you're the one who can stop him. What if I can't? Then at least you tried. And I'll be right behind you, there's potion to go back, I can get help. Hermione looked at him. This boy who'd been her friend for mere months. Who'd seen her as a person when everyone else saw a symbol. Who'd helped her control her magic, challenged her mind, stood beside her against trolls and dark secrets. If I don't come back, she said, tell Ron he was brilliant at the chess. Tell him yourself. You're coming back. She drank the potion and stepped through the flames. The final chamber was smaller than she'd expected. A mirror stood at its center, massive, ornate, with words carved around its frame that Hermione couldn't read. Quirrell stood before it. Ah, he said, and his voice was different. No stammer. No nervousness. Just cold, confident control. The girl who lived. I wondered how long it would take you to arrive. Where's Snape? Hermione demanded, wand raised, magic already surging in her chest. He was the one, Snape. Quirrell laughed. Severus has been trying to stop me all year. Quite inconvenient, really. But no, he's not the threat you should be worried about. He turned to face her fully, and Hermione saw his face for the first time in proper light. It was pale. Strained. Wrong. The stone is in the mirror, Quirrell said. I can see it, I can see myself presenting it to my master, but I can't get it out. Perhaps you can help. I'm not helping you do anything. You misunderstand. Quirrell's smile was thin and terrible. You don't have a choice. He raised his wand. Hermione raised hers. But before either could cast, let me speak to her. The voice came from nowhere. From everywhere. From inside Quirrell, somehow, high and cold and utterly inhuman. Quirrell hesitated. Master, you are not strong enough, I am strong enough for this. Quirrell turned around. His hands went to his turban, unwinding it slowly, revealing the back of his head. Hermione's wand dropped. A face was growing out of Quirrell's skull. Chalk-white skin. Red eyes like burning coals. A slit of a nose, like a snake. Hermione Granger, the face said. The mouth moved, but the voice seemed to bypass her ears entirely, speaking directly into her mind. We meet at last. Voldemort, Hermione whispered. What remains of him? Your mother's sacrifice was inconvenient. It tore me from my body, reduced me to this, a shade, a parasite. But I have not been idle. I have been working, planning, waiting. And soon, I will rise again. I won't let you. You cannot stop me. You are a child, powerful, yes, but untrained and emotional. Your magic responds to your feelings, and your feelings are chaos. Right now, you are terrified. I can taste it. He was right. She was terrified. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Her wand hand was shaking. But she was also angry. And grief-stricken. And furious that this creature had killed her parents and now expected her to cower before him. You killed my mother, she said, and her voice was steadier than it had any right to be. You killed my father. You came to my house on Halloween night and you murdered them because they stood against you. They died like insects beneath my heel. Your father didn't even slow me down. Your mother begged, she didn't beg. Hermione's magic was rising now, building in her chest, but this time she didn't fight it. She let it build. She stood in front of my crib and she refused to move. She loved me enough to die for me. And that love is the reason you're stuck in the back of a coward's head instead of ruling the world. Voldemort's face twisted with rage. Insolent child. You know nothing of power, I know enough. Hermione's hair was rising, crackling with static. The whole chamber was beginning to shake. I know that you've spent 10 years as a ghost, feeding off unicorn blood and possessing weaklings. I know that you're desperate for that stone because without it you'll fade away into nothing. And I know that my mother's protection is still in my blood, which means, she didn't finish the sentence. She moved. Her hand closed around Quirrell's arm, and the effect was instantaneous. Smoke. Screaming. The smell of burning flesh. Quirrell staggered back, staring at his arm in horror. His skin was blistering, bubbling, turning to ash where she'd touched him. The protection, Voldemort snarled. Kill her. Kill her now. But Quirrell couldn't. Every time he tried to grab her, tried to touch her, he burned. And Hermione pressed forward, her hands on his face now, her magic pouring out of her in waves, and Quirrell was screaming, Voldemort was screaming, and the mirror was shattering. Something dropped into her pocket. Heavy. She didn't have time to look. Quirrell crumbled. His body fell to pieces like ash, like he'd never been solid at all. And from the ruins, a dark shape rose, a screaming, twisting wraith that dove at her face and then through her, fleeing, escaping, disappearing into the darkness. Hermione stood alone in the chamber, surrounded by dust and broken glass, breathing hard. Her pocket was heavy. She reached in and pulled out a red stone, small enough to fit in her palm, glowing with inner light. The Philosopher's Stone. She'd done it. She didn't remember falling. One moment she was standing, the next, she was waking up in the hospital wing with afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows and Harry and Ron sitting beside her bed. 3 days, Harry said when she opened her eyes. You've been out for 3 days. Madame Pomfrey said it was magical exhaustion. The stone, destroyed. Dumbledore and Flamel agreed it was too dangerous to keep. Harry's expression was complicated. Flamel's going to die now. He and his wife. They've been alive for centuries, and now they'll just stop. Hermione lay there, processing. She'd saved the stone from Voldemort. And in doing so, she'd doomed 2 people to death. It was their choice, Ron said quietly. Flamel said he'd rather die than let you know who get the stone. You didn't kill anyone, Hermione. You saved everyone. Quirrell was dead already, basically. Harry's voice was matter-of-fact. Voldemort was draining his life force. He would have died within weeks even if you hadn't stopped him. Hermione closed her eyes. She could still feel the heat of Quirrell's skin burning under her hands. Could still hear the screaming. I thought I'd be glad, she said quietly. When I faced him. I thought I'd feel satisfied, or vindicated, or something. But I just felt scared. And angry. And sad. That sounds about right, Ron said. You're not a murderer, Hermione. You're 11 years old and you just fought the darkest wizard who ever lived. Feeling scared is normal. For the record, Harry added, I solved the logic puzzle in under 2 minutes. I thought you should know. Despite everything, Hermione laughed. It hurt, her ribs ached and her throat was raw, but it felt good. Real. I touched him, she said. And he burned. The protection my mother left, it's in my skin, my blood. He couldn't touch me without dying. That's. Harry paused, searching for words. That's remarkable. And also terrifying. The magical implications, Harry. Ron's voice was gentle. Maybe not right now. Harry blinked, then nodded. Right. Sorry. I get caught up. The door to the hospital wing opened. Dumbledore entered, tall and silver-bearded, his blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. Ah, Miss Granger. You're awake at last. He settled into a chair beside her bed, movements slow and deliberate. How are you feeling? Sore. Confused. Hermione hesitated. He said he killed my parents because they defied him. He said my father didn't even slow him down. Dumbledore's expression softened. Voldemort lies as easily as he breathes, or would, if he still needed to breathe. Your father fought bravely, Miss Granger. He delayed Voldemort long enough for your mother to reach you, to prepare her final protection. Without Richard Granger's sacrifice, none of this would have been possible. Hermione's eyes burned. I don't remember them. I don't remember anything about that night. And that is a mercy. Dumbledore's voice was gentle. Some things are too terrible for the conscious mind to hold. But your parents' love, that you carry with you always. It flows in your blood. It saved you in that chamber, just as it saved you 11 years ago. The protection, Harry said. It's tied to her blood. That's why Voldemort couldn't touch her. Precisely, Mr. Potter. An ancient magic, invoked by Jean Granger's sacrifice. As long as Hermione shares blood with those who shelter her, her aunt, in this case, the protection remains. Hermione thought of Aunt Margaret. The resentment. The neglect. The way she looked at Hermione like she was something unwanted. My aunt hates me, she said quietly. And yet she took you in. Dumbledore's eyes were kind but sad. That act, however reluctant, sealed the protection. It is not a comfortable arrangement, but it is a necessary one. For now. Hermione didn't know what to say to that. She looked at Harry and Ron instead, her friends, her real family, and felt something settle in her chest. "He's not gone," she said. "Voldemort. He escaped. I saw him, a shadow, a wraith, he flew right through me and disappeared." "No," Dumbledore agreed. "He is not gone. The Philosopher's Stone was merely one avenue for his return. There will be others. Voldemort is patient and clever, and utterly without mercy. He will try again. Then we'll stop him again." Harry's voice was calm. "Certain. We stopped him this time. We can do it again." Dumbledore looked at him with something like surprise, then smiled. "You are an unusual young man, Mr. Potter. I suspect you will do great things in your time." "I suspect we all will," Harry said, glancing at Hermione and Ron. Together. The end-of-year feast was subdued for Hermione. She sat between Harry and Ron at the Gryffindor table, picking at her food, still processing everything that had happened. Dumbledore awarded them last-minute points, for outstanding chess, for cool logic, for nerve and courage, and Gryffindor won the House Cup. The table erupted in celebration. Hermione smiled but didn't cheer. She was watching the Slytherin table, where Draco Malfoy sat with a thunderous expression. Their eyes met across the Great Hall. Draco's lip curled. But he didn't say anything. For the first time all year, he didn't have a snide comment or a cruel remark. He just looked away. "He's scared of you now," Ron observed. "Everyone is. Word got out about what happened in the chamber. You killed a professor with your bare hands." "I didn't kill him. Voldemort killed him. I just accelerated the process." Still terrifying. But Ron was grinning. In a good way. Like, "Don't mess with Hermione Granger unless you want to burn alive," terrifying. "That's not funny." "It's a little funny." Harry snorted. Hermione found herself smiling despite everything. The feast ended. Students streamed toward the train. The school year was over. Hermione stood on the platform, watching the scarlet engine steam and hiss. Harry and Ron stood beside her, their trunks loaded, their owls caged. "Same time next year?" Harry asked. Hermione looked at him. At Ron. At the castle rising behind them, the place that had become home in ways she'd never expected. "Try to stop me," she said. They boarded the train together. Found their compartment, the same one from the first trip, by unspoken agreement. Settled into their seats as the Hogwarts Express began to move. "So," Ron said, pulling out his chess set. "Rematch?" Harry was already smiling. "You're going to lose." Big words for someone who lost last time. "I've been practicing. In my head. I have theories." "Theories won't save you." Hermione watched them argue, warmth spreading through her chest. This was what she'd been missing all those years in the box room. Not just magic, not just power, but connection. Friendship. A place to belong. She didn't know what next year would bring. More challenges, probably. More danger. Voldemort was still out there, and he wouldn't stop until he'd returned to full power or she'd stopped him for good. But she wouldn't face it alone. She had Harry, with his brilliant mind and steady presence. She had Ron, with his loyalty and tactical genius. She had friends who would run toward a mountain troll to save her, who would face dark wizards beside her, who would never leave her behind. For the first time in her life, Hermione Granger felt like she had a family. And that was worth more than any Philosopher's Stone. Far from the train, in a dark chamber that had once held promise, Lucius Malfoy stood before a hidden vault. His hands were steady as he retrieved a small black diary from its depths. The leather was worn. The pages inside were blank. But the magic emanating from it was unmistakable, bold and dark and patient. "Soon," he murmured, tucking the diary into his robes. "The Dark Lord's work continues. He disappeared into the shadows, and the vault door swung shut behind him. Chapter 2, The Heir's Shadow. The book slammed shut under Draco Malfoy's pale hand. Harry Potter looked up from his notes, expression neutral, and met the grey eyes staring down at him with open contempt. Crabbe and Goyle flanked Malfoy like trained dogs, their massive shoulders blocking the narrow aisle between bookshelves. "Doing your little research, mudblood?" Draco's voice was silky with malice. "Taking notes on a world you'll never truly understand?" Harry didn't flinch. Didn't tense. Just carefully set down his quill and folded his hands on the table. "I understand enough to have beaten you in every exam last year," he said calmly. "Something I'll be happy to repeat." Draco's jaw tightened. Behind him, Crabbe cracked his knuckles with obvious menace. "Grades don't matter," Draco said. "Blood matters. Legacy matters. You're nothing but a jumped-up muggle playing at magic. When the Dark Lord returns, when?" Harry's eyebrow rose slightly. Interesting word choice. Not if. When. Something flickered in Draco's expression. Fear, maybe. Or anticipation. Harry filed it away for later analysis. "My father says it's only a matter of time," Draco said. "And when that day comes, people like you will be put in your proper place." "Your father says a lot of things." Harry stood slowly, gathering his books. He was shorter than Draco by an inch, but somehow he seemed to take up more space. "I wonder how many of them he actually believes." Draco's wand appeared in his hand. Harry didn't reach for his, just looked at it with mild interest. "You think I won't hex you right here? I think you're smart enough to know what happens if you do." Harry's voice was still calm. "Madame Pants has eyes everywhere. Your father's influence doesn't extend to school detentions. And Hermione would be upset." The name landed like a threat. Draco's wand hand wavered. Everyone knew what Hermione Granger had done last year. The story had spread through the school like wildfire. The girl who lived had faced Voldemort himself and burned his servant alive with her bare hands. She was unstable, people whispered. Powerful beyond measure. Dangerous. And she was Harry Potter's best friend. "This isn't over," Draco said, pocketing his wand with affected casualness. "Enjoy your summer reading, Potter. It's the only advantage you'll ever have." He swept out of the bookshop, robes billowing, bodyguards trailing. Harry watched him go, then sat back down and reopened his book. His hands were perfectly steady. His heartbeat hadn't changed. But his mind was racing, cataloging every word of the exchange. "When the Dark Lord returns." Not if. When. The Malfoys knew something. And Harry intended to find out what. The burrow exploded with warmth the moment Hermione stepped through the door. "Hermione, dear." Molly Weasley descended upon her like a red-headed hurricane, pulling her into a crushing hug that smelled like fresh bread and lavender. "Look at you, skin and bones. Haven't those muggles been feeding you properly? Ron, get her trunk. Fred, George, clear the table. Arthur, put down that muggle contraption and say hello." Hermione stood frozen in the embrace, not sure what to do with her arms. Physical affection wasn't something she was used to. Aunt Margaret had touched her twice in 11 years, once to slap her, once to shove her into the box room after a particularly explosive magical outburst. "I'm fine, Mrs. Weasley, really, nonsense. You're staying here for the rest of summer, and I won't hear any arguments. Ron's been moaning about missing you and Harry for weeks. Hasn't shut up about that chess match you apparently owe him." "I don't owe him, Hermione." Ron came thundering down the stairs, grinning broadly, and suddenly Hermione was being hugged again, this time by a gangly 12-year-old who'd somehow grown 3 inches since June. "Finally. Harry got here yesterday, we've been waiting, come on, I want to show you my room." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the stairs, Molly's protests about lunch fading behind them. The burrow was chaos, crooked walls, mismatched furniture, ghoul in the attic, chickens in the yard, but it was happy chaos. Lived in chaos. The chaos of a family that loved each other enough to share tight spaces and hand-me-down robes. Hermione had never experienced anything like it. Ron's room was at the very top of the house, orange to the point of eye-watering, plastered with posters of a Quidditch team called the Chudley Cannons. Harry sat on the spare bed, notebook in hand, looking up when they entered. Hermione. His smile was small but genuine. How was your summer? Awful, Hermione said honestly, dropping onto the bed beside him. Aunt Margaret barely spoke to me. Uncle Thomas pretended I didn't exist. I practiced wand movements in my closet and read my textbooks 3 times each. Sounds productive, at least. It was lonely. The words came out before she could stop them. She looked away, embarrassed. Harry's hand touched her shoulder briefly, just a moment of contact, and then withdrew. He understood loneliness. Different from hers, maybe, but still recognizable. You're here now, Ron said, oblivious to the moment or maybe choosing to ignore it. And Mum's going to stuff you full of food until you can barely move. That's just what she does. Fred and George are planning something for your birthday, don't ask, I don't know, probably explosions, and Dad wants to ask you about Muggle things. He's obsessed. Muggle things? Electricity. Rubber ducks. Airplanes. Anything, really. He works for the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office, so he's supposed to understand how Muggle stuff works, but honestly, he hasn't got a clue. Hermione found herself smiling. I could explain some things, I suppose. My uncle had a rubber duck collection. Brilliant. He'll love you forever. Now, Ron rubbed his hands together with obvious anticipation. Chess. Ron, I just got here, just one game. Harry's been practicing and he still can't beat me. I need a real challenge. Hey, Harry protested mildly. Sorry, mate, but it's true. Your strategy's getting better, but you're too predictable. You always go for the logical move. Sometimes chess requires illogical moves. That doesn't make any sense. Exactly. Hermione laughed, really laughed, and the tension she'd been carrying since leaving Hogwarts began to unwind. This was what she'd been waiting for all summer. Not just magic, not just escape from her aunt's house, but this. Friends. Belonging. Home. They played chess until dinner. Ron won every game but swore Hermione was improving, and then trooped downstairs to find the long kitchen table groaning under the weight of Molly's cooking. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, fresh bread, peas, carrots, gravy, and 3 different desserts because apparently Molly couldn't decide which one Hermione would prefer. All this for me? Hermione stared at the spread. Your skin and bones, Molly repeated firmly. Someone has to feed you properly. Hermione's eyes burned. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry over dinner, and sat down between Harry and Ron. Across the table, Fred and George were already scheming about something. She caught the words, dung bomb, and Ginny's room, and Percy was lecturing anyone who would listen about his new position as prefect. A small red-haired girl sat at the end of the table, watching Hermione with huge brown eyes. This had to be Ginny, Ron's little sister, starting Hogwarts this year. Hi, Hermione said. I'm Hermione. Ginny's face went crimson. She squeaked something unintelligible and looked down at her plate. She's been like that all day, Ron muttered. Fan of yours, apparently. Has a poster of you in her room and everything. A poster? Hermione felt her own face heating up. People have posters of me. You're famous, Harry said dryly. Did you forget? I try to, constantly. Dinner was loud and chaotic and wonderful. Arthur Weasley peppered Hermione with questions about electricity, but how do the electrons know where to go, while Molly kept adding food to her plate every time she cleared it. Fred and George tested some kind of sweet on Percy that made his nose grow 6 inches before Molly caught them and started shouting. Ron narrated it all like a sports announcer. Harry ate quietly, observing that small smile still on his face. He caught Hermione's eye across the table and nodded slightly. "Good," the nod said. "This is good." She nodded back. "Yes. It is." The trip to Diagon Alley was supposed to be simple. Buy school supplies. Get new books. Maybe stop for ice cream. Standard back-to-school shopping, nothing complicated. It went wrong almost immediately. The bookshop was crowded when they arrived, too crowded. A banner hung across the front, Gilderoy Lockhart, book signing, Magical Me. Inside, witches and wizards jostled for position, clutching copies of Lockhart's autobiography and giggling like schoolchildren. "Who's Gilderoy Lockhart?" Hermione asked. Ron stared at her. "You don't know? He's only the most famous wizard in Britain, writes all those books about his adventures. Battling werewolves, banishing banshees, that sort of thing. Mum's obsessed with him. I thought I was the most famous wizard in Britain." "You're not a wizard, you're a witch. And also you're 12. Lockhart is." Ron's ears went red. "Look, he's got really good hair, all right." Harry snorted. Hermione rolled her eyes. They pushed into the shop, trying to navigate around the mob of Lockhart admirers. The man himself stood at a table near the back, blonde, wavy-haired, blindingly white smile, signing books with a flourish and posing for photographs. Hermione Granger. The shout cut through the crowd like a knife. Lockhart had spotted her, of course he had, her face had been in the papers after last year, and was waving enthusiastically. Come here, come here. Let's get a photo together, the girl who lived and me, imagine the press." He grabbed her arm before she could protest, pulling her into position beside him. Cameras flashed. Hermione's smile was fixed and painful. "Wonderful." Lockhart beamed. "And I've got a special announcement, this year, I'll be teaching defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts. We'll be seeing much more of each other, Miss Granger." The crowd erupted in applause. Hermione's heart sank. This preening idiot was going to be her teacher. She finally extracted herself from Lockhart's grip and retreated to where Harry and Ron were waiting. Harry was frowning at Lockhart with obvious skepticism, Ron looked vaguely starstruck despite himself. "He's going to be terrible," Hermione muttered. "Probably," Harry agreed. "His books don't hold up to scrutiny. Too many inconsistencies in his accounts. Either he's embellishing heavily or, Harry Potter." The voice came from behind them, cold, drawling, unmistakable. Hermione turned to find Lucius Malfoy standing there, silver-topped cane in hand, Draco at his side. Lucius looked like an older version of his son, same white blonde hair, same gray eyes, same aristocratic sneer. But there was something else in his expression, something calculating, hungry, that made Hermione's skin crawl. "The Muggleborn prodigy," Lucius continued, ignoring Hermione entirely. "My son has told me about you. Top of your class despite your unfortunate origins. Quite remarkable." "Thank you," Harry said neutrally. "Of course, talent can only take you so far. Without proper connections, proper breeding, you'll always find doors closed to you. The wizarding world has traditions, Mr. Potter. Hierarchies. Knowing one's place is essential to survival. I appreciate the advice." Harry's voice didn't change, but his eyes had gone cold. "I'll keep it in mind." Lucius smiled, a thin, unpleasant expression, and finally turned to Hermione. "And the girl who lived. Your parents were great disappointments to the pureblood community, Miss Granger. They could have been powerful allies, but instead, they chose to throw their lives away defending Muggle lovers and blood traitors." The words hit Hermione like physical blows. Her magic surged, she could feel it building in her chest, pressing against her ribs, demanding release. Books began to rattle on nearby shelves. My parents were heroes, she said through gritted teeth. They died fighting the kind of evil your family supports. Did they? Lucius's smile widened. Or did they simply lose? There's a difference, Miss Granger. One is noble. The other is merely foolish. Hermione's control cracked. Books exploded off the nearest shelf, scattering across the floor. The crowd around them gasped and scattered. Lucius's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. He'd wanted this, wanted her to lose control in public. Harry stepped forward, placing himself slightly between Hermione and Lucius. You're causing a scene, Mr. Malfoy. Very undignified for someone of your breeding. The words hung in the air. Lucius's smile faltered. The mud-blood has a sharp tongue, he said softly. Someone should teach him to hold it. Try, Harry said. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Arthur Weasley pushed through the crowd, face flushed with anger. Lucius. Arthur. Lucius's sneer returned. Busy day at the Muggle Protection Act. Still wasting the Ministry's time on that nonsense? Better than wasting it on dark artifact collections. Slander. My collection is perfectly legal. Lucius's hand tightened on his cane. Come, Draco. We have business elsewhere. He turned to leave, and as he did, his hand brushed against Harry's cauldron, sitting on the floor near the register. The movement was subtle, almost invisible in the chaos of the shop. Almost. Hermione saw it. She didn't know what she'd seen, a dropping motion, like Lucius had slipped something into the cauldron, but she filed it away for later. The Malfoys swept out of the shop. The crowd began to reform, whispers following them. Did you see, the Granger girl, lost control, books everywhere. Hermione's hands were shaking. Harry touched her elbow gently. Let's go, he said quietly. We can finish shopping another day. They collected their things and left. Hermione didn't notice the small black diary now nestled among Harry's schoolbooks. Neither did Harry. But someone was watching. Waiting. Patient as only the dead can be. The train ride to Hogwarts was quieter than last year. Hermione sat by the window, staring at the passing countryside, still stewing about Lucius Malfoy's words. Great disappointments. Merely foolish. He was trying to provoke you, Harry said, not looking up from his book. Deliberately. He wanted you to lose control. I know. Why? Hermione considered. To discredit me, maybe. The girl who lived can't even control her temper in a bookshop. Makes me look unstable. Dangerous. You are dangerous, Ron pointed out. You killed a professor last year. I didn't kill, Hermione stopped, sighed. You know what, fine. I'm dangerous. But that doesn't mean I should lose control in public. No, Harry agreed. But understanding why Malfoy wanted that reaction is more important than beating yourself up over it. Why, then? I'm not sure yet. Harry finally looked up. But Lucius Malfoy is planning something. The conversation with Draco this summer, the way Lucius talked about Voldemort's return like it was certain, they know something we don't. You think they're involved? Ron's voice dropped to a whisper. With you-know-who? I think Lucius Malfoy was a Death Eater who claimed the Imperius Curse made him do it, Harry said flatly. I think he has a mansion full of dark artifacts that the Ministry conveniently never searches. And I think he's been waiting for his master to return ever since he reformed. Hermione felt cold. If Voldemort comes back, he will. Eventually. Harry's eyes were steady. The Philosopher's Stone was just one option. There will be others. We need to be ready. How? We train. We learn. We figure out what the Malfoys are planning and stop them. Harry paused. And we watch each other's backs. Whatever's coming, we face it together. Ron nodded firmly. Together. Hermione looked at them, her best friends, her chosen family, and felt the cold recede slightly. They were right. Whatever happened, they'd handle it. They had to. The train rattled on toward Hogwarts. The attack started in October. Hermione was in the library when she heard, the caretaker's cat, Mrs. Norris, had been found petrified outside the girls' bathroom on the second floor. A message was painted on the wall in what looked like blood: the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the heir, beware. Chamber of Secrets? Hermione was already pulling history books from the shelves. I've read about this. Hogwarts, a history mentions a legend about a secret chamber built by Salazar Slytherin. Slytherin built a chamber? Ron looked pale. What's in it? Something terrible, supposedly. A monster that only the heir of Slytherin could control. The chamber was sealed after Slytherin left, and no one's been able to find it since. Until now, apparently. Harry was frowning. Petrification. That's rare. Only a few magical creatures can cause it. Basilisks, Hermione said immediately. Cockatrices. Gorgons, if you believe in them. Basilisks are serpents. Slytherin's house symbol is a serpent. Harry's eyes met hers. That fits. But how would someone control a basilisk? They're incredibly dangerous, even looking at one directly kills you. Maybe looking at one indirectly just petrifies? Hermione considered. Mrs. Norris could have seen a reflection. The floor was wet. There's always water in that corridor because of Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Moaning Myrtle. Harry straightened. She died in that bathroom. What if she died because of the chamber? What if she saw something? They looked at each other. A lead. An actual lead. We should investigate, Hermione said. Agreed. Ron groaned. Why is it always us? Can't we have one normal year? Where's the fun in that? Harry was already gathering his things. Let's go talk to a ghost. Moaning Myrtle was exactly as unpleasant as her name suggested. She wailed about her death, sobbed about her unpopularity, and threw an absolute tantrum when Hermione asked about the night she died. But eventually, through the tears and dramatics, she revealed something useful. I was hiding in my stall because Olive Hornby was teasing me about my glasses, Myrtle said, sniffling. And then I heard someone come in. A boy. He was speaking some strange language, hissing, sort of, and then I heard it. Heard what? A voice. A horrible, slithering voice. It said something about killing, and I looked out to see who was there, and Myrtle dissolved into fresh sobs. I saw these great big yellow eyes by the sink, and I died. Yellow eyes. By the sink. Harry moved to examine the sinks, old-fashioned, grimy, obviously unused, and stopped at one near the wall. Hermione. Look at this. She leaned in. Scratched into the copper faucet was a tiny serpent. The entrance, she breathed. It's in the bathroom. The Chamber of Secrets is under the school, and the entrance is right here. How do we open it? Harry touched the snake carving, frowning in concentration. Then he opened his mouth and hissed. The sound was alien, inhuman, a series of sibilants that made Hermione's skin crawl. But the effect was immediate. The sink began to move, sliding backward to reveal a large pipe leading down into darkness. Harry. Hermione's voice was careful. Did you just speak Parseltongue? I think so. Harry looked as surprised as she felt. I've always been able to talk to snakes. I thought it was just part of my magic. Animals respond to me sometimes. I didn't realize it was a specific ability. Parseltongue is incredibly rare. Slytherin could speak it. So could. Hermione trailed off, not wanting to say the name. Voldemort, Harry finished. I know. I've read about it. He stared at the open pipe. The question is, what do we do now? We go down, Hermione said firmly. If there's a basilisk under the school, we need to stop it. People could die. We could also die, Ron pointed out. Then we don't look it in the eyes. We bring mirrors. We prepare. Hermione, Ron hesitated. Last year, you took on Quirrell alone. Nearly died. Maybe we should tell someone first. A professor? Which professor? McGonagall would stop us from investigating. Dumbledore isn't here, he's been called away to the ministry. Lockhart is useless. Hermione's jaw set. We're the only ones who can do this, Ron. Harry was watching her with that calculating expression she'd come to recognize. You're sure? I'm sure. Then we go. He looked at the pipe. But not blindly. We need more information first. Who opened the chamber? Who's controlling the basilisk? It has to be someone at the school. The heir of Slytherin, Hermione said. Or someone who thinks they are. Draco Malfoy, Ron said immediately. It's got to be. His family's been in Slytherin forever, his father's a Death Eater, and he's been acting weird all year. Hermione considered. Draco had been acting strange, less openly hostile, more watchful. Like he was waiting for something. Maybe, she said. But we need proof. Polyjuice potion. Harry's voice was thoughtful. We could impersonate Slytherin students. Get close to Draco. Make him talk. Hermione started to protest, then stopped. It was brilliant, actually. Risky and illegal, but brilliant. That would take a month to brew. And the ingredients are restricted. Then we'd better get started. The Polyjuice potion plot consumed the next few weeks. They brewed in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, the only place nobody would bother them, using ingredients stolen from Snape's private stores. Harry handled the theory, working out precise measurements and timing. Hermione provided raw magical power when the cauldron needed stabilizing. Ron kept watch and provided moral support. Meanwhile, the attacks continued. Colin Creevey, petrified in the corridor, his camera melted from whatever he'd seen through the lens. Justin Finch-Fletchley, petrified in the library along with nearly headless Nick, the ghost floating frozen in midair, translucent and still. Each attack sent ripples of fear through the school. Students traveled in groups. The professors implemented safety measures. And everywhere, people whispered about the heir of Slytherin. Some of them were whispering about Hermione. She's the only one who could talk to snakes, Hermione overheard a Hufflepuff say. Maybe she doesn't remember doing it, she's got that dark magic in her from surviving the curse. The girl who lived wouldn't attack students, someone else protested. How do you know? She killed a professor last year. She's unstable. Hermione walked away before she could hear more. But the words stuck with her, festering. Was that what people thought? That she was the monster? Ignore them, Harry said when she told him. They're scared and looking for easy answers. You're convenient. Because I'm already strange. Because you're already powerful. Harry's eyes were steady. People fear what they can't understand. You don't fit their categories, not quite a hero, not quite normal, not quite safe. That makes you a target. How do you deal with it? The Muggleborn stuff? I don't let it define me. Harry shrugged. People will always find reasons to exclude others. Blood status, money, house affiliation, it's all just excuses for tribalism. The only response is to be so competent they can't ignore you. And if they ignore you anyway, then you find people who don't. And you hold on to them. He glanced at her sideways. Which we have. So we're fine. Hermione wanted to believe that. She tried to believe it. But the whispers continued, and the attacks continued, and sometime in late November, she started noticing something else. Harry was acting strange. He was staying up late, writing in a small black book she didn't recognize. He was distracted during meals, staring into space with an unfocused expression. And once, she could have sworn she heard him talking to someone in an empty classroom, a one-sided conversation that stopped abruptly when she knocked. Harry. She cornered him in the common room one evening when Ron was at Quidditch practice. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing." But his hand moved reflexively toward his bag, where she could see the corner of a black journal peeking out. "What's that book?" "Just a diary. I found it in my things. It's useful for organizing thoughts." Something about his voice was wrong. Too casual. Too dismissive. "Can I see it?" Harry's expression shifted, just for a moment, and Hermione felt a chill run down her spine. The look in his eyes was cold. Calculating. Hungry. Then it was gone, and Harry was himself again, smiling slightly. "It's private. My notes, my thoughts. You understand." Of course. But she didn't. And she didn't believe him. That night, she waited until the common room was empty, then crept upstairs to the boys' dormitory. Harry's trunk sat at the foot of his bed. She felt sick even thinking about going through his things. He was her best friend, she trusted him, but something was wrong and she needed to know what. The diary was in the front pocket. Small, black, leather-bound. She picked it up carefully. The moment her fingers touched it, she felt it, a whisper at the edge of her mind, cold and seductive. "Hello, Hermione Granger." She dropped the book like it had burned her. It hit the floor and fell open, pages blank and pristine. No writing. No notes. Nothing at all. But she had heard a voice. She was sure of it. Hermione backed away slowly, her heart pounding. She knew what this was. She'd read about objects like this, artifacts imbued with consciousness, fragments of personality, pieces of soul. The diary was possessed. And it had been talking to Harry for weeks. She ran to find Ron. "Are you sure?" Ron looked pale in the moonlight streaming through the bathroom window. They'd retreated to their brewing station, the polyjuice potion bubbling quietly in its cauldron. "Harry wouldn't, he's Harry, I know what I heard." Hermione's voice was shaking. "It spoke to me, Ron. The diary. It knew my name. It's some kind of dark artifact, and it's been influencing Harry." "Influencing him to do what?" "I don't know yet. But think about it, Harry can speak Parseltongue. He has access to the chamber. If someone wanted to use him to control the basilisk, but who? Who gave him the diary?" Hermione thought back. The bookshop. Lucius Malfoy. That subtle brush against Harry's cauldron. "Malfoy," she breathed. "Lucius Malfoy. He slipped something into Harry's things that day in Diagon Alley. Malfoy planted a dark artifact on Harry." Ron's voice rose. That's insane. That's exactly what a Death Eater would do." Hermione started pacing. "He couldn't plant it on me, too risky, too many people watching the girl who lived." "But Harry? A Muggleborn with no family connections, no political protection. Harry's the perfect target. We have to tell him. Get the diary away from him." "I tried. He wouldn't let me see it. The artifact has hooks in him, Ron. He's not going to give it up willingly." Ron was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. "What do we do?" "We find out more about what the diary actually is. Research. Then we figure out how to break its hold on Harry." Hermione squared her shoulders. "And we don't let him know we're onto it. If the diary senses a threat, it might accelerate whatever it's planning." "What about the chamber? The attacks?" We continue investigating. But carefully. Very carefully. The polyjuice potion bubbled behind them, thick and mud-colored. 1 month until it was ready. 1 month to figure out how to save Harry from whatever was consuming him. Hermione hoped it would be enough. The Christmas holidays came and went. Harry stayed at Hogwarts. His parents wanted him home, but he'd claimed there was important research he needed to do, and Hermione stayed with him. Ron stayed too, ostensibly for solidarity, but really because Hermione had begged him not to leave. If something happens, she'd said, I need someone I can trust. You trust me? With my life. Ron had swallowed hard and nodded. The castle was eerily quiet with most students gone. Hermione spent her days in the library, researching magical artifacts and possession, while secretly watching Harry for signs of the diary's influence. He seemed normal most of the time, sharp, curious, steady, but occasionally his eyes would go distant, and she'd see that hungry look flicker across his face. The diary was showing him something. Telling him things. And whatever it was, Harry was believing it. You're staring at me, Harry said one afternoon, not looking up from his book. Sorry. Just thinking. About? The attacks. Hermione kept her voice casual. 2 months and no progress. It's frustrating. We're making progress. Harry's tone was confident. Almost too confident. I've been learning things. About the chamber, about Slytherin, about the whole history of blood purity in the wizarding world. From where? Sources. He looked up, and his eyes were clear, focused, friendly. Nothing wrong. I'll share it all eventually. I'm just processing. You know you can talk to me. About anything. I know. Harry smiled. You're the best friend I've ever had, Hermione. You and Ron both. I wouldn't be who I am without you. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they made Hermione's blood run cold. I wouldn't be who I am without you. What was Harry becoming? The polyjuice potion was ready in early January. They transformed into Crabbe and Goyle, Hermione having obtained hairs from their robes through careful maneuvering in potions class, and infiltrated the Slytherin common room. The plan was simple: find Draco, get him talking, figure out if he was the heir. It didn't go as expected. Draco was in a corner of the common room, alone, staring into the fire with an expression of profound unease. When fake Crabbe, Ron, approached, he barely looked up. It's getting worse, Draco said without preamble. My father's letters. He's planning something, but he won't tell me what. Just keep saying the heir will cleanse the school and our time is coming. The heir. Ron grunted, trying to sound like Crabbe. Whoever's opening the chamber. Father seems to know something about it, but, Draco stopped, shook his head. I don't want to be involved. I thought I did, but people are getting hurt. Actual students. What if one of them dies? Hermione, as Goyle, stared at him. This wasn't what she'd expected. Draco sounded scared. Conflicted. Human. You don't know who the heir is? She asked, keeping her voice low and dumb-sounding. No. And father won't say. Just keeps talking about the Dark Lord's legacy and tools put in motion. Draco shuddered. I think he did something. Planted something. But I don't know what. Tools put in motion. The diary. Hermione felt sick. Lucius had done exactly what she'd suspected, planted a dark artifact to cause chaos, but even his own son didn't know the details. We should go, she muttered to Ron. Before the potion wears off. They retreated, leaving Draco alone with his fears. And Hermione realized something she hadn't expected: Draco Malfoy wasn't the villain here. He was just another pawn. The real enemy was still hiding. It happened in February. Hermione was in the library, researching basilisks for the 100th time, when she heard Harry's voice from behind a bookshelf. "I understand," he was saying. "I know what you need me to do." She crept closer, heart pounding. Through a gap in the books, she could see Harry sitting alone at a table, the black diary open before him. He was writing in it with intense focus, pausing occasionally to read something on the page. But the page should have been blank. She'd seen it herself. "Yes," Harry said aloud, as if responding to something. "Tonight. I'll be ready." He closed the diary and stood, tucking it into his robes with practiced ease. Then he walked out of the library without looking back. Hermione followed. She kept her distance, using alcoves and shadows for cover, watching as Harry moved through the corridors with disturbing purpose. He descended stairs, turned corners, navigated the castle like he knew exactly where he was going. He ended up at Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. Hermione watched from the doorway as Harry approached the serpent-marked sink. He hissed in Parseltongue, and the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets slid open. "Harry!" She couldn't stay hidden any longer. She burst into the bathroom, wand raised. "Stop!" He turned. And the expression on his face was wrong, cold, amused, entirely unlike the Harry she knew. "Hermione." The voice was Harry's, but the inflection was different. Older. More refined. "I wondered when you'd interfere." "That's not you talking. That's the diary." "Very perceptive." Harry smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. "Though the diary is such a limiting term. I prefer to think of myself as a memory. A fragment of someone who once attended this school. Someone who carved out a piece of his soul and hid it in these pages, waiting for the right moment to return." Hermione's blood went cold. "Voldemort. Tom Riddle, actually. That was my name before I became Lord Voldemort." Harry, or the thing wearing Harry's face, tilted his head. "Your friend is quite remarkable, you know. Such a brilliant mind, such desperate hunger to belong. It was almost too easy to slip inside his insecurities. Let him go." "I'm afraid I can't do that. You see, I need him. His magical power, his connection to this school, his ability to speak Parseltongue, which he learned from me, by the way, through our delightful conversations. He's the perfect vessel for my return. I won't let you, you can't stop me." Tom Riddle's smile widened on Harry's face. "The girl down there is already dying. By midnight, I'll have drained enough life force to become corporeal again. And then, girl." Hermione's heart lurched. "What girl? Didn't you notice the Weasley girl is missing? Such a trusting child. Touched the diary once, at that ridiculous house, and I've had a thread connected to her ever since. She's in the chamber now, her life bleeding away to fuel my resurrection. Ginny. Ron's little sister. The girl who had blushed every time Hermione looked at her. No." Hermione raised her wand. "I don't care what you've done to Harry, I won't let you kill her. Then come and stop me." Tom Riddle turned Harry's body toward the open pipe. "If you dare." He jumped into the darkness. And Hermione, without hesitation, followed. The Chamber of Secrets was massive and ancient and terrible. Stone serpents lined the walls, their eyes glinting with malevolent intelligence. Water dripped from somewhere overhead, echoing in the silence. And at the far end, lying on the cold stone floor, was Ginny Weasley, pale, unmoving, barely breathing. Harry stood over her, the diary open in his hands, whispering words Hermione couldn't understand. "Harry." She ran toward them. "Harry, listen to me, you have to fight it. I know you're still in there." He looked up. Tom Riddle's cold smile still twisted his features, but for just a moment, just a flicker, Hermione saw something else. Fear. Confusion. Harry, trapped inside his own mind. "He can't hear you," Tom Riddle said. "He's mine now. As he should have been from the beginning, a Muggleborn with power enough to challenge the greatest wizard of all time. What a waste, serving the likes of Dumbledore. He could have been magnificent. He's already magnificent. Hermione's voice was steady despite her terror. He's brilliant and kind and loyal and good. You're just a parasite feeding on his insecurities. His insecurities are valid. Tom Riddle's voice hardened. The wizarding world will never accept him. They see him as less, as other, as tainted. I offered him belonging. I offered him truth. And he accepted. He accepted lies. Manipulation. You twisted everything good about him. I revealed what was already there. Tom Riddle stepped closer, Harry's face inches from hers. The hunger for power. The need to prove himself. The rage at a world that would judge him for his blood. Those feelings are real, Hermione Granger. I merely cultivated them. Behind him, Ginny whimpered. Her skin was growing paler by the second. Let her go, Hermione demanded. She's innocent. No one is innocent. And I need her life force to return. You should be thanking me, actually, when I rise again, I'll finally kill Voldemort properly. End this endless cycle of violence. Bring order to the wizarding world. You are Voldemort. I am a better version. Tom Riddle's smile turned predatory. The version that existed before the desperation, before the madness, before the fragmenting. 16 years old, brilliant, perfect. I will succeed where my future self failed. You'll try. Hermione raised her wand. And I'll stop you. With what? Spells you learned from textbooks. Raw power you can't even control. Tom Riddle laughed. You're a child, Hermione Granger. The girl who lived, what a joke. You survived because your mother died for you. That's it. That's the only reason you're standing here. Without her sacrifice, you'd be nothing. The words hit harder than any curse. Because part of her believed them. Part of her had always believed them, that she was only special because of her scar, because of her parents' deaths, because of something she didn't choose and couldn't control. But another part of her, a stronger part, remembered something else. Your parents died so you could live freely. Don't let their sacrifice become a cage. Dumbledore's words. And Harry's, on the train, what felt like a lifetime ago, what can you actually do? This. She could do this. Face the monster. Save her friends. Refuse to let fear define her. You're wrong, Hermione said, and her voice didn't waver. My mother's sacrifice wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. Everything I've done since then, the magic I've learned, the friends I've made, the person I've become, that's mine. And I won't let you take any of it away. Her magic surged. The whole chamber shook. Tom Riddle's smile faltered. What? Hermione didn't give him time to finish. She threw her power at him, not a spell, not a focused attack, just raw force and fury and desperate love for her friends. The blast caught Harry's body and slammed it backward, breaking his grip on the diary. The book flew through the air. Hermione dove for it, fingers closing around the leather cover, and felt Tom Riddle's consciousness scream against her mind. You can't destroy me. I am eternal. I am, you're a book, Hermione snarled. And books can burn. She didn't have fire. But she had something better. Harry had dropped his wand when he fell. It lay on the stone floor, 10 feet away. Hermione lunged for it, diary clutched in one hand, and her fingers closed around the hollywood just as a massive shape erupted from the far end of the chamber. The basilisk. It was enormous, 60 feet long at least, scales gleaming sickly green, eyes fixed on her with deadly intent. One look and she would die. One direct gaze and it would all be over. She closed her eyes. Think. Think. The basilisk was coming. She could hear it, scales scraping stone, hissing breath growing closer. She couldn't fight it blind. She couldn't. A trill of music split the air. Phoenix song, bright and defiant. Hermione opened her eyes just enough to see a blur of red and gold, Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, diving straight at the basilisk's face. Talons raked across massive eyes. The serpent screamed, an awful, inhuman sound, and thrashed blindly. It was blind now. Literally blind. She could look. Hermione looked. The basilisk was still massive, still deadly, but without its eyes, it was vulnerable. It swung its head wildly, searching for prey by scent and vibration, and Hermione realized what she had to do. Fawkes circled overhead. Something dropped from his talons, a ragged bundle of cloth that landed at her feet. The sorting hat. Inside it was something heavy. Something metal. Hermione reached in and drew out a silver sword, rubies glinting in the dim light. The sword of Gryffindor. Okay, she breathed. Okay. I can do this. The basilisk lunged. Hermione dodged, rolling across the wet stone, and came up with the sword raised. The serpent's scales were too thick for the blade to penetrate, but its mouth, open and gaping, was vulnerable. When it strikes again. I have to be inside its range. She waited. 1 second. 2. The basilisk struck. Hermione didn't dodge this time. She moved, forward, into the gaping jaws, the sword extended like a lance. She felt the impact through her whole body as the blade pierced the roof of the serpent's mouth, driving up into its brain. The basilisk shrieked. Its death throes threw Hermione backward, and she hit the ground hard, pain exploding through her side. When she looked down, a fang was embedded in her arm. Basilisk venom. One of the deadliest substances in existence. She was dying. But she wasn't dead yet. Hermione crawled toward the diary, which lay where she'd dropped it. Her vision was blurring. Her arm was on fire. But she could see Tom Riddle's form solidifying nearby, becoming more real, more corporeal, fed by Ginny's fading life. No, he was saying, no longer smiling. No, you can't. Hermione pulled the basilisk fang from her arm with a scream of agony. Blood poured from the wound, mixed with black venom. She stabbed the diary. Tom Riddle's form exploded. Light burst from the diary's pages, brilliant and blinding. A scream echoed through the chamber, inhuman, agonized, final, and then silence fell. The diary was smoking. Destroyed. Harry gasped, convulsing on the floor, and Hermione saw his eyes, his real eyes, clear and terrified, and himself again. Hermione. His voice was hoarse. What, where, you're okay. She was crying now, tears mixing with blood and venom. You're okay. It's over. Hermione, your arm, I know. The venom was spreading. She could feel it in her veins, cold and inexorable. I know. Fawkes landed beside her. The phoenix's eyes were ancient and wise, and when he bent his head and let pearly tears fall onto her wound, Hermione felt the cold retreat. Phoenix tears. They healed everything. She lay on the cold stone floor, surrounded by the corpse of a basilisk and the ruins of a diary, and laughed because she couldn't help it. They'd done it. Against all odds, they'd won. Harry crawled to her side, face pale and stricken. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I couldn't stop myself, I know. Hermione grabbed his hand with her uninjured arm. It wasn't you. It was never you. But I believed him. All those things he said about belonging, about blood, about never being accepted, I believed it. Those feelings are real, Hermione said gently, echoing Tom Riddle's words with different intent. But so are these. So is this. She squeezed his hand. You belong with us, Harry. With me and Ron. You always have. Harry's eyes were wet. He didn't speak, just squeezed back, and that was enough. Across the chamber, Ginny stirred. Color was returning to her cheeks now that the diary was destroyed. Come on, Hermione said, struggling to her feet. Let's get out of here. The aftermath was chaos. Dumbledore returned from the ministry to find the school in uproar, the Chamber of Secrets opened and closed, the monster slain, the Malfoy family's involvement exposed through the diary's remains. Lucius was summoned for questioning. His protestations of ignorance were thin enough that even the ministry couldn't ignore them. He wasn't arrested, not yet, but his reputation was in tatters. And Draco, who'd known something was wrong but hadn't spoken up, spent the rest of the year walking like a ghost through Hogwarts corridors. Harry was examined by Madame Pomfrey, questioned by Dumbledore, and cleared of any wrongdoing. The diary had been controlling him, everyone agreed on that, and once it was destroyed, he was himself again. But Hermione saw the guilt in his eyes. The shame. The way he flinched whenever someone mentioned the attacks. It wasn't your fault, she told him for the 100th time, sitting on the edge of his hospital bed. Ron was asleep in a chair nearby, exhausted from the night's events. I opened the chamber. I set the basilisk on people. Harry's voice was flat. I nearly killed Ginny Weasley. Tom Riddle did those things. Using you as a puppet. But I let him in. Harry looked at her with haunted eyes. All those things he said about blood status, about never belonging, I wanted to believe them so badly that I stopped questioning. I wanted someone to tell me I was special, that I deserved more than the scraps this world throws at Muggleborns. And he used that. He used my weakness. Wanting to belong isn't a weakness. Hermione's voice was fierce. It's human. And being manipulated by a piece of Voldemort's soul doesn't make you weak, it makes you a victim. A survivor. I don't want to be a survivor. Harry's jaw tightened. I want to be better. Strong enough that no one can manipulate me again. Smart enough to see the trap before I step in it. Then we'll work on that. Together. Hermione took his hand. You're the smartest person I know, Harry. And now you know your vulnerabilities. That's not weakness, that's knowledge. Use it. Harry was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Together, he repeated. All right. Together. The year ended with little fanfare. Lockhart, exposed as a fraud when his memory charms failed against the basilisk's resistant skull, was carted off to St. Mungo's. Hagrid was released from Azkaban. He'd been arrested briefly on suspicion of the original chamber opening 50 years ago, and returned to cheers from the students who'd missed him. Hermione, Harry, and Ron sat by the lake on the last day, watching the giant squid drift lazily beneath the surface. So, Ron said. Normal year. Harry snorted. Definitely not. At least nobody died this time. Ron paused. Well, except the basilisk. And the diary, sort of. The diary wasn't alive, Hermione said. It was a piece of soul, preserved in an object. A Horcrux. Both boys stared at her. Where did you learn that word? I did some research after Dumbledore explained what the diary was. Hermione's expression was troubled. Horcruxes are, there's almost nothing about them in the Hogwarts library. But I found a reference in a restricted section book. They're pieces of soul, separated from the main being through murder, hidden in objects or sometimes living creatures. They're what makes someone immortal. Voldemort's immortal. Ron's voice rose. You never mentioned that. I didn't know the details until recently. But think about it, he survived the killing curse rebounding. He's been alive, sort of, for 11 years without a body. That's not normal, even for dark wizards. Harry had gone very pale. The diary was a Horcrux. Voldemort made multiple fragments of his soul. That's my theory. Hermione met his eyes. And if the diary was one, there might be more. How many more? I don't know. Dumbledore might. But he hasn't told me. The three of them sat with that information, the weight of it settling over them like a shroud. Voldemort wasn't just powerful, he was potentially unkillable. Unless they found and destroyed every piece of his soul. Well, Ron said finally. That's terrifying. Yes. We're going to have to deal with it eventually, aren't we? Yes. Brilliant. Ron sighed heavily, then rallied. But not today. Today, we're going home, and I'm going to eat my mum's cooking and sleep in my own bed and pretend Dark Lords don't exist. We can save the world again next year. Hermione laughed despite herself. Deal. Harry was still quiet, staring at the lake. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. The diary showed me things. Memories. I know things about Voldemort now, about Tom Riddle, that nobody else does. How he thought. What he wanted. Where he went when he left Hogwarts. He looked at Hermione. When we're ready, when we go hunting for the other Horcruxes, I can help. I can guide us. You want to use what the diary taught you? I want to turn his own knowledge against him. Harry's smile was thin but genuine. He thought he was corrupting me. Instead, he gave me weapons. Hermione considered that. It was dangerous, using the tools of your enemy, walking the line between understanding and becoming. But Harry wasn't Tom Riddle. Harry had them. All right, she said. When the time comes, we'll do it together. Together, Ron agreed. The Hogwarts Express whistled in the distance. Time to go home. But as they walked toward the train, Hermione couldn't shake the feeling that home was right here, walking beside her, broken and brilliant and utterly devoted. Harry and Ron. Her family. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. The news reached Hogwarts 3 days into the summer holiday, delivered by special evening edition Owl. Sirius Black escapes from Azkaban. The headlines screamed from every paper, every Wizarding Wireless, every conversation in every pub and shop across magical Britain. The notorious mass murderer, the betrayer of the Grangers, had broken out of the inescapable prison and vanished into thin air. Hermione read the paper in her aunt's kitchen, hands trembling. Sirius Black is believed to be targeting Hermione Granger, the girl who lived, who is indirectly responsible for his imprisonment. Aurors warn that Black is extremely dangerous and should not be approached under any circumstances. There was a photo. Wild dark hair. Hollow eyes. A face twisted by madness and Azkaban's horrors. And beneath it, a smaller photo, old, faded, of a handsome young man holding a baby girl, smiling at the camera with unmistakable joy. Black, shown here at Hermione Granger's naming ceremony in 1980, was named her godfather by Jean and Richard Granger. He is believed to have betrayed their location to you-know-who, resulting in their deaths. Hermione stared at the photos. At her own infant face, cradled in the arms of a man she didn't remember. A man who had loved her parents enough to be named godfather. A man who had then, allegedly, sold them to Voldemort. She didn't know what she was supposed to feel. Rage? Terror? Grief? What she actually felt was cold determination. If Sirius Black was coming for her, she would be ready. And this time, she wouldn't face the monster alone. Chapter 3, The Prisoner's Truth. The plate shattered against the kitchen floor. Hermione stood frozen, her hand still extended, magic crackling through her veins like wildfire. Across the room, Aunt Margaret pressed herself against the counter, face white with terror and something uglier, hatred, old and deep and finally breaking free. "You're just like your mother," Margaret spat. "Strange and wrong and wrong. She thought she was so special, running off to that freak school, leaving me behind like I was nothing, and look what it got her. Dead. Dead in a cottage with her freak husband while I had to take in their freak daughter, don't. Hermione's voice came out low and dangerous. Her hair was rising, static electricity building. The kitchen lights flickered. Don't talk about my mother. I'll talk about whatever I please. This is my house. You're only here because Dumbledore made me take you, because of some magic protection nonsense, protection that's kept me alive. Hermione felt eerily calm, the rage settling into something cold and controlled. Protection that keeps Voldemort from finding me. That's what you signed up for when you agreed to this arrangement. I didn't agree to anything. I was told, then consider yourself released. Hermione raised her chin. I'm leaving. Don't try to stop me. She walked out of the kitchen, up the stairs, and began throwing her possessions into her trunk. Books. Clothes. Her wand, vine wood, dragon heartstring, the weight of it reassuring in her hand. The photo of her parents that Hagrid had given her first year, worn at the edges from being held too often. Aunt Margaret appeared in the doorway, still sputtering. You can't just leave. The protection, Dumbledore said I had to live where my mother's blood dwells. Hermione snapped her trunk shut and levitated it behind her with a flick of her wand. He didn't say I had to stay here during summer holidays. And frankly, I'd rather take my chances with a mass murderer than spend another night in this house. She pushed past her aunt, descended the stairs, and walked out the front door. The night air was cool on her face. London stretched around her, indifferent to the drama playing out in one small flat. Hermione stood on the pavement, trunk floating beside her, and realized she had absolutely no idea where to go. The burrow was obvious, but she couldn't impose on the Weasleys without warning. Harry's parents lived in a Muggle suburb somewhere, she had his address but no way to reach him quickly. She could try to contact Dumbledore, but that felt like admitting defeat. A bus appeared at the end of the street. Not a normal bus. This one was violently purple, triple-decker, and moving at a speed that should have been impossible through London traffic. It screeched to a halt directly in front of her, and a pimply young man in a conductor's uniform stuck his head out. Welcome to the night bus, emergency transport for the stranded witch or wizard. My name is Stan Shunpike, and I will be your conductor this evening. Where to? Hermione stared at him. How did you, stuck out your wand hand, didn't you? That's how you hail us. Stan squinted at her forehead, and his eyes went wide. Blimey. You're heir, you're Hermione Granger. The girl who lived. Unfortunately. Well, come on then, come on. Can't leave you standing on the street, can we? Not with Sirius Black on the loose. Stan grabbed her trunk and hauled it aboard, ushering Hermione up the steps. He's after you, ain't he? Saw it in the Prophet. Betrayed your parents and now he's coming to finish the job. So they say. The bus lurched into motion, throwing Hermione into a seat that slid across the floor. Beds lined both levels, occupied by witches and wizards in various states of sleep. The whole vehicle seemed to exist in its own pocket of space, squeezing through gaps that shouldn't have existed, jumping hundreds of miles between blinks. Where you headed, then? Stan asked, pulling out a ticket pad. Diagon Alley. Ministry of Magic. We go anywhere, we do. Hermione thought about it. The leaky cauldron would be public, crowded, full of people who'd stare at her scar. But it would also be safe, well-lit, well-traveled, and connected to the Fleur network. The leaky cauldron, she said. Please. The bus shuddered and squeezed through an impossible turn. Hermione held on to her seat and tried not to throw up. 20 minutes later, she was stumbling off the bus and through the leaky cauldron's battered door. The pub was nearly empty at this hour, just a few late-night drinkers nursing fire whiskies, but the barman, Tom, looked up immediately. Miss Granger. He hurried around the counter, face creased with concern. We weren't expecting, are you all right? Where's your guardian? I need a room. Hermione forced her voice steady. Just for tonight. I'll contact the school in the morning. Of course, of course. Room 11's free. But Miss Granger, with Sirius Black, I'm aware. She took the key from his hand. Thank you. She made it to room 11 before her legs gave out. Sank onto the narrow bed, trunk at her feet, and stared at the ceiling while her heart finally slowed. She'd done it. She'd left. After 12 years of neglect and resentment, she'd walked out. It should have felt triumphant. Instead, she just felt tired. A tapping at the window made her jump. An owl, Hogwarts owl, she could tell from the coloring, was perched on the sill, letter clutched in its talons. Hermione opened the window and took the letter. The seal was Dumbledore's. Miss Granger, I am aware of your departure from your aunt's residence. Please remain at the Leaky Cauldron until tomorrow morning, when Professor McGonagall will arrive to escort you to Hogwarts. You will be safer within the castle's wards for the remainder of the summer. Do not go outside. Do not speak to strangers. And do not, under any circumstances, pursue Sirius Black. He is more dangerous than you know. Dumbledore. Hermione read the letter 3 times. Then she crumpled it into a ball and threw it at the wall. He is more dangerous than you know. She didn't need Dumbledore to tell her that. Sirius Black had murdered 13 people with a single curse. He'd laughed while they dragged him to Azkaban. He'd spent 12 years surrounded by Dementors and somehow emerged sane enough to escape. Of course he was dangerous. But so was she. McGonagall arrived at precisely 8 o'clock the next morning, looking as stern and unflappable as always. She escorted Hermione through the Floo network to Hogwarts, deposited her in Gryffindor Tower, and gave her a look that somehow communicated both sympathy and disapproval. The headmaster will speak with you later, McGonagall said. In the meantime, I suggest you rest. You've had quite the ordeal. I'm fine, Professor. You walked out of your guardian's home in the middle of the night because she called you a freak. McGonagall's voice softened slightly. You are many things, Miss Granger, but fine is not one of them. Rest. That's an order. She swept out of the common room, leaving Hermione alone in the empty tower. It was strange, being at Hogwarts without other students. The castle felt different, quieter, older, full of echoes. Hermione wandered through the corridors, trailing her fingers along ancient stone, trying to settle the restless energy buzzing under her skin. She ended up in the library, because of course she did. The research started almost by accident. She was looking for something, anything, to occupy her mind, and the newspaper archive seemed as good a place as any. Back issues of the Daily Prophet, dating back decades, preserved under stasis charms. Sirius Black arrested after mass murder. Black laughs as Aurors take him into custody. Betrayer of the Grangers sentenced to Azkaban. The articles told a consistent story. Sirius Black had been the Grangers' secret keeper, the only person who knew the location of their hidden cottage. He'd given that information to Voldemort. And when their mutual friend Peter Pettigrew had confronted him about it, Black had killed Pettigrew and 12 Muggle bystanders with a single curse. Open and shut. Obvious. Inarguable. So why did something feel wrong? Hermione pulled more articles. Older ones, from before her parents' deaths. Photos from their wedding, her mother radiant in white, her father beaming, and there in the background, a young Sirius Black with his arm around another young man. Jean and Richard Granger with groomsmen Sirius Black and Remus Lupin. She studied the photo. Black looked different here. Handsome, laughing, alive in a way that the Azkaban photos completely lacked. He was looking at Jean Granger with obvious affection, and Jean was looking back with equal warmth. These people had been friends. Real friends, not just acquaintances. Something still felt wrong. Miss Granger. Hermione jumped, scattering papers. Professor Dumbledore stood in the library entrance, blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. Doing some research, I see. He moved third max response provided by Anthropic. What if Hermione was the girl who lived and Harry was a Muggleborn? The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.